Welcome back to the Rockers Media Network. I'm Brady Beedon, and we're sitting down with a Rockers general manager, Nick Field, post-trade deadline coming down the home stretch. Nick, very busy man on Monday. Made some pretty bold moves. Trevor Babin and Avery Smith both get traded to Columbus and Athens, respectively. I guess before we even talk about the return, let's go through the thought process and where you were and where you think the Rockers are as you approach the trade deadline and those decisions.
So a lot goes into it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We've been here with the new ownership and myself back in this role for about 6 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the roster is quite a bit different than when we started. The goal was always to come in here slowly but surely, make solid additions
Mm-hmm.
that are going to make our team have more depth and be able to be more competitive on the ice. And also part of the big thing with what I like to do is bring guys in that are good fits in the locker room too.
Mm-hmm.
Like culture is a big thing for us. We want guys that want to be here, that work hard first and foremost, and can be good teammates and good role models and good hockey players. So I think we're on the right track. The games over the past few weeks, we had a pretty tough run there with 5 games in a row versus the
Mm-hmm.
top 3 teams in the league between,
Right.
with Binghamton,
Columbus,
Columbus, and then
Athens.
Athens. And I think if you go back and look, we've been playing much better hockey than we
Yeah.
were 6 to 8 weeks ago. A lot more responsible. We're not giving up, tons of quality chances on a night in, night out basis. Our goals against have been lower. At the same time, we're starting to produce more offense too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the changes that we made have been successful as far as getting the team back to where a competitive level where we want to be. And I think you saw that last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The Athens game, the final score is 4-1. That included an empty net goal, a power play goal, and a shorthanded goal. We only gave up one goal, 5-on-5.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday night against Watertown, we found a way to win that game 3-2 in overtime. And I think we outshot them like 55 to 31. So that was not happening earlier this season. And, it's starting to get to the point where we can start to do that. So that's kind of where we were heading into the weekend with the trade deadline. And, we have made a handful of moves leading up to that. And I told the team the week before that, look, I'm not actively trying to shop anybody,
Mm-hmm.
but if we get some offers and it's just something that it would be irresponsible to take, then we're going to make
Mm-hmm.
moves because we got to build this team and build the foundation back up to put us in a good position for the future. So that's kind of how that went down.
So when you trade guys like Babin and Smith, obviously you're thinking the hockey side, but is there any part of you that goes, man, these are fan favorites, that this is going to be a little tougher to sell than maybe shipping out 2 other guys, because there is the other side of it that those are 2 guys that were pretty well beloved by the fans. Did that come into the thought process at all during the negotiations?
Yeah, of course it does. And, let's talk about Babin specifically here. So he had been here since day one.
Yeah.
I think he was our first pick in the expansion draft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Trevor and I have a great relationship. I respect the heck out of him as a person and a player. That move was for him.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really tough year this year. He had a significant injury where he was out 6 to 8 weeks, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He came back. He's been trying to find his game. And to be quite honest with you, he didn't have a great team defensively playing in front of him. So he's had a real tough go. So I thought it was a great opportunity for him to be able to go to a good organization, get a mental reset, and be able for him to go back and find his game and get him back on track. And then obviously the other side of that is now that we have Rico, and he is developed into a legitimate #1 goaltender as well. So I felt comfortable for Babs to give him that opportunity. At the same time, it's tough losing a guy like that, but at the end of the day, it's more about giving him an opportunity to help himself, knowing that we have Rico here with us.
Yeah.
So that was a catch-22. It's tough to see him leave, and he'll be back around. I think in the summertime, like he's still going to do his training and stuff like that. So, and I told him, hey, this isn't goodbye forever. It's goodbye for now. And he felt a lot more comfortable with it after we had a good conversation. So best of luck to him. And then Avery, that was Athens really wanted him. I actually had calls on Avery for about 3 weeks from multiple teams.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really came through as far as something that I felt made sense for us.
Right.
Until this Athens deal came through. And, I can't get into all the details right now, but, from a player standpoint, we're getting plenty in return. We had a couple guys up front, one of which is here with us now. The other one should be joining us next week. And then we have a few more players coming to us after the season's over. And then another couple guys at training camp. So the reality is the for us to not take that offer, it'd be irresponsible. And again, Avery, great guy, I love him. I know the fans loved him. He brings that element, to the team, and that's what they wanted him down there to do as well. And again, in the stage that we're in, I felt like we had to take the opportunity to try and get some good players to help us rebuild. So that's where that came from.
Let's talk about a little bit about the guys you got back. Timur Gavrilovic, a big body, listed at 6'6". He's one of the guys that you noticed on the ice pretty quickly when Athens was here, even for one game. Brennan Ronan, the other one that will be here at a later time. But what about those guys did you see? Did it help seeing them in person last Friday, so you got to kind of have an idea of what it was like with your own two eyes, what you knew what you were getting back in return?
Yeah, so we were looking to secure our defensive core. At the time last week we have 6 defensemen. We'd like to have 7 quality defensemen. So that definitely helped solve a problem right off the hop. Like you mentioned, big body, big steady, reliable defensive defenseman.
Right.
Physical, big physical defenseman. So that instantly solved the problem that we had there. And then with the forward, again, a great college career, high tempo, fast skater. That's what we want. We want to be a fast team. We want to be 200 feet. The pace of the game nowadays, especially against some of these better teams, we have the players that can play at that pace now, whereas, 6 to 8 weeks ago we didn't, right? So again, just another good skater, good offensive addition that, we can add to our group. And like Coach Milam was saying earlier, it's okay if guys aren't comfortable in the locker room. You shouldn't be comfortable to the point where you don't feel like anybody could ever take your job. Right. And if you're going to have a good team, you're going to have a bunch of guys that can play, and that's, where we're at, and we're going to finish the season strong, I think.
One other move, not one that you may have had much of a hand in, but TJ Sneath gets healthy. That's basically a free addition at the deadline. How much does he help? Because he was a guy last year that stepped into a big role, and he was one of the leading guys before he went down this past year. How much does it help getting a guy like him back in the lineup?
Immensely. I mean, you take one of your top forwards and leaders, that you have that's been out for roughly 8 weeks, I believe, maybe a little longer, and you put him back in. I mean, what else would you want? We just traded for an all-star type player, basically by him coming off the IR. Right. So again, that adds more depth to our group. And like Coach Milam was talking about earlier, like when you're looking at the roster now, he has a hard time figuring out, hey, who am I going to sit out? What are my lines going to be? And that's what you want. So, we're in a good spot. Like I said, with some of the additions we've made recently, in addition to the trade deadline guys, the guys that can come in earlier, like the Writers and the Corrigans. Mac Diver has been a great addition on the D-Corps as well, coming out of college. So we're in a much better spot than we were when we got here, and that's what we're striving to do, and we're looking to finish strong here. What do we have, 12 or 14 games left?
I think this is game 45 tonight right now, so... Yeah, 11 games after, 10 games after tonight.
Okay, so 12. Okay, so 12 total. Okay, so yeah, we're in a good spot, and there's no reason why we can't finish strong and roll into the playoffs here.
All right, well, I guess that kind of wraps up, because I was going to ask, what are you looking for the rest of the way? Because as far as player acquisition, maybe a college guy here or there, but the roster's basically set for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Brady, you've been around for the first 2 years, so we don't like to have a lot of transactions, right? So if you noticed and paid attention the first 2 years, we had a pretty solid team. So there's not a lot of reason to have to make a lot of transactions. Usually on teams where you see them making a lot of transactions is because they're not doing very well.
Right.
So we have a good core group here. Like, we have a deep group. I like the guys in the room. The only reason we'll be making any moves at this point is if we have to move a guy off for roster space for one reason or another, or if it's a college guy. So we're comfortable with what we have. I like the group. I like the culture in the room. The biggest thing I like about this group is they compete for 3 periods. They play hard for 3 full periods, and that's the first thing any team needs to do to give themselves a chance. And I think that's a big reason why you've seen a progression in the quality of play over the last 3 to 4 weeks.
Well, Nick, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking some time, and hopefully we're talking about a really fun run here in the next 3-4 weeks or so.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Brady.
No problem. He's Nick Field. I'm Brady Beedon, and you're watching the Rockers Media Network.